Man, who'da thunk that I'd ever revive a dead YouTube channel? Last time I tried to make a video, it consisted of me walking around the cars in my driveway, squeaky, pubescent voice talking directly into whatever device I was using. I'm pretty sure I used either my iPod Touch 4th generation, or maybe I had my 5S or something by then, I don't really know. Regardless, I'm armed with a 12-year-old MacBook Pro, a slightly above average amount of daily recommended caffeine, and an emotionally driven motivation to put together a video recapping what it's been like to go through a majority of my life with a cheap car I bought in high school. Releasing in mid-99, General Motors unveiled onto the US the 10th generation Pontiac Bonneville. Production of the 10th generation, as well as the Bonneville nameplate, were both axed in 2005, which just so happens to be the model year of today's subject. As of this recording, I'm 26. Over the past 10 years, I've had the privilege of owning a 2005 Pontiac Bonneville. I bought this baby with 145,000 miles on it, and it currently sits at just shy of 280,000. What initially started out as just wheels to get me through high school ended up getting me through multiple part-time jobs, a couple relationships, living in 4 different places. Geez, I kind of sound like that Liberty Mutual chick.
2 boyfriends, 3 jobs.
I made the executive decision that when the amount of years that I've had it reached double digits, that I would put together a retrospective where I cover objective things like reliability, longevity, and quality, but also relive some of the more subjective topics, like the design then versus now, what I personally liked and disliked about it, and even some of the great memories I've had with it. Honestly, there's so much to cover here that I'm just going to start from the very beginning. My very first car was a 2003 Grand Am. While I did like the car, it was starting to have some issues that were getting difficult to justify dealing with, on top of me accidentally putting it in the ditch. My mom had finally agreed to let me look for a new car to buy myself, and it wasn't long before I found one that I liked on Bizman Online, a website similar to Craigslist that served my area. The next weekend, me and a few friends got together to make the drive up to northern North Dakota to check out an '05 SLE model. The seller had advertised it as being clean, problem-free, and simply wanted to get rid of it. When we pulled up, my heart sank. I could hear how bad it was misfiring from within my own car parked 2 spaces away. I got in and took it for a test drive, only to find that the transmission was slamming after it warmed up, rear shocks were blown out, engine light was on, and the thing shook at any speed over 55. So, like any teenager with a semi-functioning, underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, I bought it. God. Anyways, I began the trek back home, stopping only along the way to refill my gas tank and pick up my good old wholesome FM transmitter, which, to this day, lives in a drawer in my house for whenever I buy an older car to work on. You know, like one without an aux input or Bluetooth. Once I finally arrived back in South Dakota, I proudly showed off my less than shiny new purchase to my very clearly concerned mom, and went to bed. With all sorts of excitement and adrenaline still in my system from the risky purchase earlier that day, I had to force myself to catch at least a few hours of sleep. So this must have turned out to be the worst decision I could have possibly made, right? Constantly breaking down and leaving me stranded? Becoming the never-ending money pit that so many car enthusiasts fall victim to? Actually, no. There's been one time that this car has ever left me stranded. The alternator took a shit, maybe 2 miles from my house. I was able to get another alternator the following day and swapped it within maybe an hour or 2. As a young adult trying to mimic the responsibility that my grandpa tried so hard to instill in me, I did manage to stay on top of keeping maintenance records for the car from the very first service I did to it up until the current day. But if this car had so many problems from before I even decided to buy it, what actually made me pull the trigger?
When it comes to traditional luxury, it's anything but more of the same.
Since this was my first step into the world of quote-unquote grown-up purchases, I was determined to find an acceptable blend of reliability, style, practicality, and affordability. I was a bit of a lanky teenager, so I wanted to be sure that I didn't face a similar issue I had with the Grand Am, which is feeling a bit cramped inside. My sights were set pretty firmly on a 2000 to 2005 Bonneville. This car is powered by a 3800 Series 2 V6. a family of powertrains that have been well proven by 2016. Before I continue any further, let's rewind back and talk about the eccentric marketing tactic they used in this commercial. They picked out some of the most depressing imagery for the start of the commercial, which like probably makes sense, but there's these random two poodles there.
Neutral colors.
I guess. This lady's all like, oh my god, I can't believe I have to drive my car today.
Albert Einstein. Like, so
Yeah,
depressed.
off-brand Timu Albert Einstein over here. Starting with the 2000 model year, it was originally offered in SE, SLE, and SSEI trims. The SE remained mostly unchanged throughout the generation, receiving a minor facelift in 2003 and coming standard with the 3800 and 4T65E transmission, making around 205 horsepower. The SLE trim was a step up from the SE, receiving different front and rear bumpers along with some ground effects and dual exhaust. This body kit was shared with the SSEI. Most of these were optioned decently high, with only a few select options being reserved for the top of the line SSEI, which I'll get into in a second. Dual exhaust was standard on the SLE, as were 17-inch wheels. My personal vehicle had every available option on an SLE, minus a cassette player. Heated leather seats are pretty common on this trim as well, and having a sunroof was sorta a 75-25 type thing. The highest end SSEI trim is likely what most people were after back in the day, sporting a supercharged variant of the 3800 that granted it an additional bump in its powertrain, topping out at around 240 horsepower. Some of the exclusive options on this trim were a trunk-mounted CD changer, monsoon audio system with an additional 2 speakers, a heads-up display, trunk-mounted integrated tire inflator, holy shit, I forgot about that, StabiliTrak, Magnesteer, and memory seats, just to name a few. The lineup of models and options remained fairly consistent along the generation, receiving minor improvements year to year. The first notable change came after 2003, where the supercharged SSEI was dropped in favor of a Northstar-powered V8 GXP model. The GXP, despite having an engine with 2 additional cylinders, kept most of the exclusive options previously reserved for the SSEI, all while still throwing in some of its own. For example, brushed aluminum interior door handles, carbon fiber print trim pieces, silver pedals, and a white gauge cluster were some of the more subtle differences this model featured. The exterior dropped the SLE and SSEI body kit in favor of a smoother design, as well as unique headlights, a 3-piece rear spoiler, 18-inch wheels, and quad exhaust tips. 2004 was the only year you could get all 3 bodies the Bonneville offered, having the SE with no special bumpers or skirts, the SLE continuing the same style that it's had from 2000 and onward, and the GXP now having its own thing. In the final year of this generation, the old SLE and SSEI body kit was completely dropped, and the SLE was given the previously exclusive GXP body themes, less the 3-piece spoiler and the wheels still being 17-inch. The V8s did not have the same reliability that the 3800s were known for, but for today, I'd like to focus on the beast of a unit that is the 3800 Series 2. The 3800s were typically reliable engines. Their weak points came from upper and lower intake manifold gasket problems and plastic coolant elbows that would become brittle and crack. This results in a sudden and drastic loss of the engine's coolant because when the plastic cracks, it cracks. Despite that rather unfortunate design flaw, the plastic elbows weren't that hard to replace, as long as you weren't stranded in the middle of nowhere, and happened frequently enough to warrant the production of an updated elbow set made out of aluminum. Once this repair was done, you could essentially rely on them never going bad again. The transmission, on the other hand, was a bit delicate. The 4T65Es were often touted as the weakest link in any vehicle the 3800 was paired with. Good thing mine never became a statistic, right? Right? Electronic solenoids would fail internally, and while not necessarily expensive on their own, did require lowering the subframe to access the side panel of the transmission where the solenoids lived. Pre-2003 models had weaker overdrive clutch splines that would wear down over time, resulting in a loss of the final speed of the car's measly 4 gears. From 2003 and on, GM implemented a heat-treated variant that near eliminated the issue. I am a bit disappointed that any of the 3800 powered vehicles across GM's fleet did not receive a transmission with more than 4 speeds, as it left the car feeling somewhat lower class than some of its Japanese competitors. Electrical gremlins were somewhat common as well, especially if water leaks were involved, which most Bonnevilles were victims of. The naturally aspirated V6 was rated at 19 miles per gallon city and 27 highway, with a combined estimate of 21 miles per gallon. My personal experiences had the car dropping as low as 16 to 18 miles per gallon in the coldest span of winter doing only city driving. On the highway, I found that my car has a sweet spot below 70 miles per hour. I can reach 29 to 30 miles per gallon if I keep the speed reasonable, with my personal high score being 34.1 miles per gallon on a road trip from Minneapolis to Sioux Falls. If I go interstate speeds of around 80, I can usually expect around 23 to 26 miles per gallon. Not the best at the time, but not nearly as poor as it ranks in the modern day. What few sedans are left in today's market appear to get between 27 and 32 miles per gallon combined on the low end. Gas mileage became more of a concern the older and more money conscious I became, but the initial purchase price to reliability ratio was what had the most weight when I was 16. I thought I had hit the jackpot with my 05 SLE model, as it was optioned out and was the only year to be stylized like the GXP, but without the V8 problems and gas mileage that came along with it. It was the perfect platform for me to get hopefully years of use out of. But first things first, we gotta take care of this guy. As I said earlier, the car was misfiring pretty hard when I bought it. A new set of coil packs, finished in the most envious color of eBay sort by lowest price yellow, quickly made for a less shaky ride, at least until I could drive to my grandparents' place. Once I made the 3.5-hour journey to my grandpa's shop, he went completely through the car with me and we did all sorts of mostly inexpensive maintenance. New shocks, new brake pads, oil change, burnt bulb replacement, transmission shift kit, engine mount, you name it. From that point on, the car was set up for success for me to make it through high school with. Lots of fun times were had with that car. In a town as small as mine, most of what my friends and I did for fun was take turns driving around and just jamming in whoever's car we decided to take. We only did the most legal and responsible things when we all hung out, as all teenagers do. The number of gallons of gas I burned in that thing are immeasurable. All the while, I was enjoying getting to just use it. When senior year rolled around, you know I took some of the cringiest senior pictures with it. My mom even has one framed on the wall in the basement. My Bonneville was never short on comments and sometimes even compliments. Whether they came from my friends, a stranger who saw me walking out of the gas station, or my grandma, mostly my grandma, the car was determined to gas up how I felt about it. Seriously though, my grandma to this current day will repeat how much she loved that car. I took it mostly as a compliment. As time passed, I graduated high school and found myself headed off to college. The perfect scene was set. My car got me through the rest of high school, from all the sporting events, part-time jobs, hangouts with friends. This maroon unit had proven itself to be a good contender to get me through the next step of life as well. I mean, why wouldn't it be? It always got alright mileage, always started, always drove. There couldn't possibly be anything that could become a potential issue. Yeah, no. The transmission started slamming gears. The literal day I moved into my freshman dorm. It made it 4 hours there, no problem. But the very first drive I took to go grab some food with my whole family in the car, it just decided that, hey, so, you know how you took care of me so good ever since you've had me and you were really relying on me not to cost a lot of money? Yeah, fuck you. So I got it down to my grandpa's shop and ended up going on an entire adventure of lowering the subframe to access the side of the transmission in order to replace one singular solenoid inside. Oh boy, that job sure was a pain in my rear. I sure hope there's not an instance that's near that would make me want to disappear into the bottom of a beer. Yeah, I smoked a deer going 40. I was driving long after the sun had set and a deer just jumped out of some slough grass. Luckily, I found a few color match parts at the junkyard that I was able to install, along with replacing the right rear door that my sister had backed into with her car in our driveway just a few months prior. We're not out of the woods yet though. Remember the transmission issue we talked about probably 30 seconds ago? Yeah, no, we had that transmission side pan off at least 4 or 5 other times for various other solenoids. Every time they were replaced, see, we did them as a complete set, and until attempt number 3, we kept doing that, even when only one single solenoid would go out. This is where I learned the importance of quality parts. It took me until years into the future to buy once, cry once, and pay for an AC Delco solenoid instead of the first set that I came across when Googling 4T65E transmission solenoid set. It has now been over 2 years since the last time I've done this repair and not a single transmission issue to speak of. Physically, we've covered what the car actually looks like, but how well does this car look compared to other more modern vehicles on the road today? Well, for starters, a decent paint job would probably help it the most. If we reduce the car down to simply the shape and body lines, it appears to be an average contender. This opinion is mostly reserved for the GXP bodies. The front and rear ends, as well as the ground effects across the side, really give this car a persona that, if well taken care of, can still turn heads today, even if only because it's so uncommon to see a Bonneville or Pontiac of any kind taken care of and not beaten or rusted out. The thin A and C pillars on this car kinda date it, as most vehicles today have chunky pillars due to newer crash safety guidelines that weren't as strict back then. A big industry trend that I've noticed on almost every new vehicle today is an abundance of textured, unpainted black plastic that typically clings its happy little ass to the lower third of every car that it's on. Take Subaru for example. Subaru is one of the guiltiest brands for absolutely loading their vehicles up with a ton of unpainted plastic. The Wilderness Edition seemed to be the absolute pinnacle of this. I'm not sure if they're going for a rugged appearance or something, but I'll always appreciate a car that's got an almost, if not entirely color matched body. Remember back in the late 90s and early 2000s when Pontiac was given so much flack for adorning their vehicles with the body cladding? Well, at least Pontiac had the decency to paint it. This is something I've always appreciated about the Bonneville, and I'm not sure if this opinion falls under the hot takes category or not, but it's just something that's always stuck out to a true cigarette car autist such as myself. Like everything in this world, cars unfortunately do age. This process is often sped up exponentially when living in a state that uses road salt. The build quality of near recession era General Motors probably doesn't help this specific example much either. If it hasn't been made clear yet, I really like this car and I always have. With that said, it definitely has its issues that annoy me. Almost all the annoyance type issues that it's had have been slow onset. The 10th generation almost always suffers from rust bubbles building up around the underside of the gas door. Of course, mine has more rust now than just around the gas door, but it's been pretty sad watching the environment eat away at what originally was my rust-free specimen. So for another example, the paint was a beautiful deep red when the car was only 10 years old. Now that the car is old enough to drink, the paint has dulled to a washed out reddish pinkish color, if it's still intact at all. The name of this specific shade of red is called Crimson Red Tricoat, and this color specifically has had an issue with paint flaking, and has unfortunately been one of my biggest complaints about the car. At first it started pretty small, and I tried to manage it with just a bit of touch-up paint, but eventually it started to let go in more places than just the original spot, and it became too much to chase after. The front bumper was one of the pieces that I replaced after hitting the deer, and I'm pretty sure it was a respray itself because of this weird masking line on the inside lip between the bumper and the hood. Whatever brand of product was used in the respray did not hold up, as the clear coat was almost completely gone on all of the upwards facing surfaces, like in front of the headlights and around the grille. The spoiler was in almost perfect condition when I bought it, but by 2022 it had developed a pretty severe skin condition. I was in auto body school at the time, and one of the projects I got a grade on was sanding back and repainting the spoiler. This is my very first instance of noticing how susceptible the color red is to sun fade. No matter how hard I tried to tint the paint that I mixed up, I couldn't get anything to match the sun faded original. The finish on the spoiler is good, but unfortunately the color never quite matched right. Certain lighting conditions made it look alright, but some made it look straight up pink. This left me feeling sorta satisfied, since anything was better than what it was before. Speaking of sun damage, the headlights and taillights weren't so lucky either. The taillights have a black border that would start to delaminate, leaving these weird bubbles at first and eventually degrading into being completely open and allowing water to pool inside. What I ended up having to do was drilling a small drain hole in the center reflector in order to prevent water from just accumulating inside. The headlights were actually hazy when I bought them, and before too long I got pretty good at sanding them down and buffing them. This would make them look alright for the time being, but I could never make them stay clean. So what's the big deal? Just pony up and order a new set? Well, I could, but the only new option available is standard headlights, not the blackened GXP specific ones. I'm too much of a purist, and it would have bothered me if I didn't have the special ones on there, so I decided to play Operation with them. What I ended up doing was ordering a new set of standard headlights. One at a time, I took out each of my original headlights and I put them in my oven in order to soften the glue used to seal the clear lens to the body of the headlight. In theory, the only part of the headlight that really needed replacing was the clear outer lens, which just so happened to be the only part of the headlight that was not GXP specific. Everything that made my headlights unique was all on the inside, which was all gonna stay. Once I had all the pieces separated, I put the brand new clear lenses onto the original housings, but not before removing the little amber insert and replacing with an amber LED instead. There wasn't a need to do that, I just thought it would look nice. The project was definitely an undertaking, but I love that the lenses were brand new and I got to keep the original GXP look in the front. One of the very first tweaks I did on it was actually to the radio. I sent it off to one of those modding services that would add a 3.5mm aux input to the faceplate, which would allow me to play music off my phone without using a transmitter anymore. Throughout the years, the bulbs started to burn out behind the buttons in the display. The task of replacing them is mostly simple. so long as you have some basic soldering skills. The problem comes with the numerous amounts of time that the bulbs would burn out again repeatedly. The aux port wires made taking the thing apart a huge chore, as it limited the space you have to get your soldering pen inside. After the final time I replaced the bulbs, something came loose, and now the audio only works on the aux input. No radio, no XM, no CD. I guess if I had to pick only one source to work, I guess I would probably pick the aux, but I don't know. The speedometer and various other switches had the same bulb issue as well, but didn't seem to go out as frequently as the radio. My car had heated seats, which I definitely loved, but there were a few instances where I had to peel the skins off of the seat because of a broken heating element inside. The final thing I want to cover here is the steering. The steering rack developed a lot of play in it. Not that it's necessarily unstable, but the tightness and responsiveness of the wheel is almost completely non-existent. Replacing the rack doesn't really make sense for a car this old. It just makes alignments near impossible, as there really isn't a dead straight position for me to align it to. Back in July of 2025, I decided it might be time to upgrade. After a lot of searching, I found a car that I thought would be a good spiritual successor to my old Bonneville, even if it wasn't red. What I got was a 2017 Honda Accord Coupe. My original plan was to use the Accord for longer distance trips while using the Pontiac for just going to work and back and keeping salt off my new car in the winter. This plan didn't last too long, however, as the Bonneville started having some more electrical issues. The low beam headlights went out, and after a ton of digging into trying to find the root cause, I found that my fuse box had partially melted. I don't run subs or anything else that draws any sort of electricity in the car, so I have no idea what caused it. I swapped out the fuse box with the unit that I got from the junkyard, and only one of the low beams came back on. At this point, no matter how much I love the car, no matter how much I try to stay on top of stuff like this, these issues were just getting to be too much. If it wasn't one thing, it was another. The next problem I had was the driver's side of my dual zone climate control was stuck on max cold. It didn't matter how many new and used temperature actuators I installed in it, replacement HVAC control panels that I replaced, and even swapping out the body control module. I could not get the driver's side actuator to do anything but default to the max cold setting, which, as you may expect in the middle of winter, is kind of a problem. I ended up cutting a hole in the side of the actuator and hardwiring the passenger side temperature actuator into the driver's side so it would at least move even if it was synchronized. Facing constant issues and annoyances really left me burnt out. I took a metaphorical step back and really thought about the situation. How practical is it to keep doing this? My Accord rides really nice, doesn't have any of those issues mentioned before, is way prettier to look at, and gets better mileage. My nostalgic ties to the Pontiac can only persevere so long. After a drawn out and very difficult decision, I knew it was time. Time for my beloved old car to go to a new home. This video was made to not only act as an honest retrospective of what my ownership experience has been like, but also as a memoir to the car itself. Believe me, if I still didn't like this damn thing throughout all those issues, I would not have chosen to immortalize it into a video. Videos are hard, man. I have a newfound respect to people who are skilled at video editing and or do them for a living. God knows I couldn't. Even though this car is no longer with me, its memory still lives on. Whether it's from the Pontiac merchandise I've collected over the years, the mechanical knowledge I've gained from it, or the numerous pictures and videos. I know I'll always have a lifetime appreciation of my 2005 Pontiac Bonneville.